room is now joined the webinar, so I'm going to kick it off. So I want to say, first off, welcome to our first webinar in a three-part series on the Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative, and a program being run by Victus, Puerto Rico, mano-Y-ola, Concentrico, Fundación Santa Elena de la Sabana, Praedictus, MillPont, and Agrology. Like all climate smart projects, it's a coalition of people who all bring important stuff to the table. We believe that our strategic partnership and innovative approach to this project has enhanced sustainability and agricultural productivity for growers. In our webinar series, we will share insights from our actual program, which aims to empower Hispanic growers and promote environmentally friendly farming practices. Our hope is to educate and share best practices with other partnership for climate smart commodities projects. This first webinar is to introduce you to the project and its innovative approach. Victus, Puerto Rico, mano-Y-ola, and Concentrico are leading, and the rest of us are here to support. And I really want to say thank you to the project's lead for bringing us in and for setting up such an innovative and groundbreaking project. And it's a definite honor to be part of it. This webinar will give you an introduction to this project and how it was successfully thought up and created and implemented. Our second webinar will take place on May 29th, and we'll dive into the importance of quality data and MMRV for climate smart commodities projects. That will be led by Agrology, Praedictus, and MillPont. And then the final will include a link to that webinar next at the end of this. And finally, webinar 3 will explore strategies for selling the results of climate smart commodities projects with contributions from all participants. And we'll announce the date for that webinar shortly. So now I want to move on to housekeeping for a second so we can go over a couple quick rules for the webinar. Great. So first off, please mute yourself unless you're speaking. That's really important on a larger thing. Secondly, add questions and comments to the chat. We will address them at the end of the webinar to not introduce the speakers in the flow of the presentation. And then finally, we're recording this, and the deck and contact information will be sent out, so don't worry about having to screen capture anything or jot down notes. Please feel free to just kind of follow along and devote your attention. All right, so now I'm going to be opening up the floor to our participants to make their introductions, starting with Jose.
Thank you, Adam, and welcome to this webinar about our Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative. My name is Jose Sanchez, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative. My role in this program is to oversee this wonderful initiative and lead the administrative side of this grant. Also, I lead the outreach team, our wonderful boots on the ground that are essential component of this program. I am in charge of establishing collaboration ties with other stakeholders, such as farmers associations, other climate smart programs and grants, governmental agencies, and master farmers, among others. And finally, I am in charge of paying the incentives to the producers to stay with us until completing the collection of field data. Thank you, Adam.
Nolo Martinez, co-president of mano-Y-ola. We are a research education company. In terms of the role that we play in this project, we are involved with the assessment, implementation, and evaluation. A lot of focus on the strategy regarding data, and then implementation of efforts in Florida. Great to be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Francisco Martinez Oronos, CEO of Concentrico. Concentrico plays a role in what is kind of the PMO or strategy of this initiative, bringing all these great folks who are going to meet together and making sure that we are meeting all of our objectives, milestones, and then also the compliance requirements that we all know Ag has for any climate smart commodities initiative. So pleasure to be here.
I think you're on mute.
Good afternoon. I'm Edwin Mas. I'm president and director of Fundación Santa Elena, which is an NGO in the central part of the mountains of Puerto Rico, with the purpose of helping the rural areas in getting knowledge and developing skills in agriculture and trying to increase their lifestyle. And I'm in charge of the curriculum, so you'll see what how the science and farming can be applied to this initiative.
Hello, I'm Dominic Sutton Vermeulen. I'm CEO of MillPont. We are a environmental claims clearinghouse and data cooperative. We build digital infrastructure for environmental outcomes and assets in commodity supply chains. And in this project, we are helping securitize the environmental assets produced as a result of the climate smart practices and creating opportunities for the producers to monetize these outcomes through market access to downstream environmental beneficiaries.
Hi, my name is Josh Perlman. I am the CEO of Praedictus Climate Solutions. Our company focuses on biophysical crop modeling for various commercial applications. In the context of this project, we are managing the overall MMRV component of the project, which includes MillPont, Agrology, the University of Florida as well, which includes soil sampling, crop modeling, and sort of the marketing of the assets. In this project, we are Praedictus specifically is in terms of biophysical crop modeling is looking at is modeling the forage systems that are present in the pastures in Puerto Rico.
Thank you, Josh. My name is Adam Keppel. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Agrology. We specialize in measuring via ground truth measurements, soil health, soil carbon flux, other greenhouse gases, and delivering that to stakeholders to turn into either larger measurements of the whole ecosystem or to inform cultivation decisions, or finally maybe to participate in insetting and offsetting markets. And our role on this project is to facilitate the extensive acquisition of ground truth data to feed into Praedictus and MillPont so that the great impact that the growers participating in the program achieve is turned into real financial value. And it's an exciting role to play. So what I'm going to say is thanks for everyone for the introductions and thanks to all our attendees. At this point, I want to turn this back over to Jose and the team to kick off the webinar.
Thank you, Adam. I'm gonna give you an overview of this initiative. So the Hispanic Climate Smart Commodities Initiative is one of the 140 projects funded by the USDA Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities that is helping beef and dairy cattle producers and small ruminant producers, among others, in the island of Puerto Rico and in the state of Florida to change their usual operations and farming practices to sequester more carbon and reduce the greenhouse gases emissions, converting their operations into climate smart. But what means climate smart? Climate smart agriculture is an approach that seeks to increase productivity, improve resilience to climate change, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions caused by agricultural activity. Why this initiative is so important? Well, in Puerto Rico and in Florida, many farmers are facing many challenges, such as devastating hurricanes and severe droughts. In addition, climate change affects disproportionately low-income small farmers. In the United States, Puerto Rican farmers face the strongest hurricane that hit Puerto Rico in 89 years, and the first one to make a direct impact in 19 years. Hurricane Maria made landfall on September 20th, 2017, and it triggered a disaster that made Puerto Rico's agricultural vulnerable. Before the storm, Puerto Rico was experiencing advancements in production, and agricultural improvements were essential to the island's economic sector. But this hurricane changed this course. The Puerto Rico Department of Agriculture reported that the island lost 80% of its agricultural infrastructure and production due to the winds and rains of this hurricane. Improving adaptive capacity among islands' systems is key to furthering adaptation. Around 85% of food in Puerto Rico is imported. So our island faces additional vulnerability to climate change because of exposure to sea level rise, constant earthquakes and isolation, and dependence on imports. Given the importance of local agriculture for Puerto Rico's food security in response to and recovery from natural disasters, adopting climate-smart measures and farm management strategies is urgent. Due to the size of our island, local farmers must diversify and increase production while juggling climate and conservation methods. Across Puerto Rico, particularly among young beginning farmers, there's a new wave of interest in food and agriculture. Residents are supporting new farmers markets, and restaurants are finding local sources of food supply. Our initiative can accelerate the island farmers' climate change adaptive capacity, develop quantification methods, and increase economic opportunities for local farmers. Our project has brought agronomists and climate solution partners to develop strategies and measures to test weather-driven crops and their production loss. We have designed a protocol to provide financial incentives directly to Hispanic farmers who transition to on-farm conservation practices that yield positive environmental outcomes like carbon sequestration, greenhouse gases emissions reduction, and water quality improvement. The focus of this initiative will be on breadfruit trees, beef and dairy cattle, and small ruminant producers. Another compelling reason to establish a Hispanic climate-smart approach in Puerto Rico and in Florida is to increase continuity and follow-up among limited English proficiency farmers. According to the 2017 Census of Agriculture, in the United States, there are 112,451 Hispanic producers, not including Puerto Rico. Hispanic farmers continue to grow fast across traditional and emerging Hispanic Latino states, including women farmers. Unfortunately, one-size-fits-all policies and programs do not always work with minority communities and culturally unique farmers. Focusing on Hispanic climate-smart commodities outreach increases economic opportunities and land value for all U.S. farmers. Moreover, raising and supporting ongoing climate-smart commodities, understanding and knowledge can be transformative. It may sound strange, but talking about climate change is one of the best things farm community leaders can do to help tackle it. No one acts if it doesn't feel important, and it doesn't feel important if the leaders are not talking about it. So let's talk about our goals and objectives in this program. First, we're going to develop the capacity of Hispanic farmers to diversify and increase production and market access while managing climate-smart methods and quantifying environmental outcomes. The second objective is to develop Hispanic farmers' climate-smart knowledge, practices, and quantification analysis to help them develop self-sufficiency knowledge, gain land and production value, and expand networks in culturally trustworthy and relevant situations. The third objective is to adopt and test modeling ecosystems on farm for climate-smart practices that yield positive environmental outcomes like carbon sequestration and water quality improvement, and design and implement a culturally appropriate procedure to certify climate-smart commodities produced by Hispanic farmers to expand markets and develop new revenue streams or increase current ones. So let's talk about the project highlights today. In our first 6 months, we have registered 101 producers, and we have a 34 producer wait list. So we are hoping to expand our participant numbers in the next months. So we have celebrated 8 events, outreach events. We have already 93. This number today changed just an hour ago, changed from 85 to 93 environmental compliance plans approved through the CPA 52, that is the environmental compliance process that the NRCS requires for every participant. And we have paid $68,000 in incentives to producers and established 20 plus partnerships and collaboration among farmers associations, governmental agencies, and other important stakeholders that we have collaborating with us in this program. So we have done a lot in 6 months, and we are happy to be to share this platform with all this great group of people. And if you want to know more about our updates on this project, you can visit www.victuspuertorico.org/HCSCI. Thank you.
I want to thank Agrology, Holly, and Adam for putting this together. It was really great to be talking with you about our partnership and also share with the folks that are on the webinar. I wanted to talk about the uniqueness of the approach. I also have to say that this project started 44 years ago. And the reason for it is because one of the keys to this approach and why we're being successful is because it's based on relationships. And I want to talk about the fact that there is a science to the relationships that we're building, as well as some of the other things that are unique that have to do with the data. And I say 44 years ago because Edwin and I were in college at the time when we were studying agronomy, and he's one of the partners in this process. And then eventually we started some projects with NRCS in different states that have a high number of Hispanic farmers and landowners, and that relationship became stronger and stronger. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important to this project. In addition to that, we are a program that is data-driven, using a data-driven approach from data that is perhaps secondary at the beginning, but eventually becomes data that is more relevant because it comes from the different farmers that are part of the program. So the first one, I spoke about the science of the relationship. I'd like to talk about something that sounds theory, but I think this project does it better in practice. And that has to do with a trust equation. If you think about the people that we have working on this project, specifically the first round of outreach work, is we were basing everything on credibility, reliability, and familiarity. Familiarity with the farms, the farmers. And there was a very high, we were betting heavily on those three things, but also lowering our emphasis on self-orientation. A lot of times, many of these agencies that are working with farmers are very difficult to connect with because there is an element of orientation that has to do with the expertise, science, and a number of different things that are kind of challenges for farmers to get to. And I think we have a team on the ground that needs to be highlighted from the beginning. The relationship with the farmer, the orientation to the culture, the traditions, the importance of the language, as well as highlighting the importance of their hopes and dreams in the operation that they have is key to gain that trust. So again, reliability, credibility, and familiarity matter to the science and the practice of why we're having success. We're also doing that with other partners, and basically is listening to Florida NRCS as well as Puerto Rico NRCS in terms of the initiative that they already have and what we need to do to comply. We have people that have actually worked with the agency over the years, and they are opening doors for us as well. And I have to give credit to Victus in this case for working really well with the agency leadership. in the case of what's happening in the ground strategically, it's not only the culture and the relationships, we're also looking at the intel data that comes from NRCS, as well as information we have on demographics and where the Hispanic farmers are doing. We focus on pasture land initially, and that was the first level of intel. And so what we wanted to do was divide the work of outreach and training and orientations in areas where we can actually get the most out of those conversations. We have one-on-one support, farm visits, and now we also have, with the help of Edwin, this concept of the best conservation practices on what he calls rice and beans language that is provided in training as well as in curricula that is on books. If we move into the data, you can move forward, Frankie, with the slides. We started with looking at where are the concentrations of pasture land that are not necessarily just all farmers, but the concentration of Hispanic farmers. And in the case of Florida, the data shows us that if we were to concentrate on 4 counties in the state as a whole, we would actually be focusing on about 51% of all Hispanic farmers. The highest number of farmers are in the South, in Homestead, Miami-Dade counties. But if we focus on pasture land, the 10 counties that are key to us, to our work, would be Okeechobee, Hardy, DeSoto, Manatee, St. Lucie, and others that are listed here in this diagram that you're looking at. So really the key is to leverage data that help us create the most impactful outreach program possible to address specific needs, to get the buy-in, get the trust, and then begin to do the trainings on the best conservation practices. That happens also after we get buy-in from the district conservationists. That's why when Indio speaks about passing the litmus test of evaluation, that goes easier when we have a better relationship with the agency. The next one shows Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, obviously, we divided our data numbers on districts. There are 8 of them. We can see here that we have a higher number of acreage in the district of Caguas, is because in the way they're mapping this, it has the most municipalities, but that doesn't necessarily speaks to the density and the congregation of farmland and pasture land in different other municipalities that may be actually bigger in the case of San Germán, Ponce, and towns like that. If you go to the next one, you can see that a lot better. So here you have a map that shows where we have actually identified the highest number and density of producers that are going to be part of the program that are participating. So again, the intel goes on both ends of the spectrum. The uniqueness of the approach is strong relationships, building trust, moving into data insights that will tell us where to be more efficient and more effective in our focus. And I'll pass it to you, Frankie, to continue with the approach.
Great, thank you. I think piggybacking on what Nola just shared, I think if the uniqueness of the project is in this outreach approach, which we feel is one of the many strengths of the project, I want to draw the kind of the line and how it is that we get to the producers and what that looks like when we do, right? And all of that is setting it up for this next phase that Edwin's going to talk about with our actual curriculum, right? We have some incredibly talented folks on the ground that I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of, but they are currently out doing the work that they love to do and visiting our farmers and keeping those relationships going. So a shout out to them. Taking this data that we see, and this is just a snapshot, it helps us understand where we want to focus our efforts, right? Essentially, where one would get the biggest bang for their buck, right? By making these connections in areas that we know are high density, by having these relationships with local field offices, we can start engaging with these producers and what it is that the project has to offer, right? We then take that, and from these relationships, what we find is that we're sent to other folks in their community, other folks that they have strong ties to that advocate for the work that we do, and the incentives we're providing both short-term and long-term, right? To summarize a little bit of what Jose said, this project in the short term, in the near term, is providing an incentive, right, depending on acreage to these producers to participate in this project. In the long term, and something that's going to be discussed in more detail in a future webinar, is that expansion into new markets, right? How from this production, how these changes of practices, they will have access to markets that they previously did not, which we know creates a new mechanism or revenue stream for these producers, right? So by continuing to expand on that web, and I don't want to minimize something that Jose said earlier. Within 6 months, we have not only 101 farmers registered of our goal of 150, which this project has set as a goal. We have a wait list of about 35. Now, some may be asking why a wait list of 35 if your target is 150. Well, Florida has been picking up steam in the last month, and 50 of those slots are reserved for our farmers in Florida. So in all, we know that based off of the eagerness, the desire, and the enthusiasm of our farmers, this can easily scale up, right? Not only in the places that we're working, but in other states, as a true and tested way of ensuring that we're getting that participation and enthusiasm. But what is it that our outreach specialists are doing? What is it that they're tasked with? Well, these folks are agronomists, preparation, they have a background in this space. Many of them we've worked with for many years, and they're building networks in communities. They're building that trust. They are bringing folks on board with not only their knowledge, but the knowledge of the curriculum and the practices that we are supporting. But they are getting out there. They're visiting. They're supporting folks with their environmental PR52 plans to submit those and get them approved. Identifying community leaders that can open those doors, coordinating the on the farm visits. Soon they'll be coordinating the soil sampling and everything that takes to ensure that we have a successful and robust MMRV side of things. And they are organizing our educational events, which Jose mentioned. There have been 8 to date, and that number will continue to grow as we continue to bring these individuals together. In order to keep track of all the rich data that comes from these conversations, both quantitative and qualitative, we're utilizing several tools to make sure that we're storing all of that information, right? We want demographics on, producer profiles, what it is that they are, the demographic information, what they're producing. Are we talking family farms? Are we talking about, we want to understand what's happening, and we can break that data down, regionally in terms of the state or territory, and extrapolate and make certain assumptions or have certain understandings that we can then replicate other places. So when we bring these individuals together through these educational events, when we're having that one-on-one, on those one-on-one farm visits, what is it that we're discussing, right? And to that, I'll actually open the door to the great Edwin Mas to dive a little bit deeper into what that is and what that looks like.
Thank you. Well, the curriculum encompasses information that has been developed in Puerto Rico and Florida. And it's all written in Spanish and English. And as Nolo said, it's in arroz y habichuelas. That means it's a very simple way to explain things to people. So things that they understand, talking their own language of the farmers. And this curriculum deals with all the conservation practices that participants must attend and comply with 15 contact hours. And that's through 6 modules that we've been developing, and they're already developed, really. And they're going to do, to attend, or have the opportunity to read their own pace whenever they can do it, at the time they can, day, night, weekends, and they must finish this during 3 months. And by the end of these 3 months, 3 months, they should make an auto certification of what they've been doing. Next, please. These are the modules. Modules, as I mentioned, these are 6 modules, beginning with a huge panorama of what's in grasslands, in pastoral in Puerto Rico, and the Florida, and that includes some geography, climate, and how these systems, silvopastoral systems, must be managed under these local situations. Then there's a module in forage species and ID, grasses and legumes, which are the 2 most common vegetation species in grasslands. Then noxious plants in pastoral, and that means toxic or invasive plants. And this is not only because we think they are invasive, but there's a list of invasive plants in USDA and under NRCS, and we have to follow those rules and regulations in order to apply for incentives in NRCS. Then we'll be talking about silvopasture systems, and this is where we include trees in grasses, legumes, with some types of livestock, or that means beef, dairy, goats, could be chicken, poultry, and these silvopasture systems, they've been used in all the world for centuries, but now we talk about silvopasture systems because we are organizing these systems. It's an organized, it's a pattern that we must follow to have this system established. And then we'll be talking about conservation practices in these systems. And the only way farmers can get extra incentives is following the NRCS, the USDA NRCS practices, the conservation practices, their best management practices. So we must follow that. And then by the 6th module is they're going to use tools to evaluate their pastoral land conditions in terms of silvopasture and in terms of wildlife habitat. Next, please. This is part of the science base we've been using. By 1987, there was a guy in Florida, in the University of Florida. His name is Nair. He was from India, and he developed this chart we have in here. Is about the different agroforestry systems we have in the world. And then one of the part of this system includes silvopastoral systems, which is what we're trying to adopt and implant in farms. Next, please. And this is part of some of the documents we have already developed. These are infograms dealing with the conservation practices that people can adopt in their farms. There's a list of 20 conservation practices. They don't need to adopt all of them, but those that are important for each farm will be studied. And for this, we're following what is called a conservation planning, which is a 9-step planning that it was developed by NRCS, but we must follow that in order to use their practices and adopt their practices. Then there are 2 other infograms. ciclo de carbono, which is carbon's dioxide, carbon cycle, and cómo funciona el secuestro de carbono y los créditos de carbono. This we developed this thanks to Dominic also. He helped us doing this the secuestro de carbono, the last one, and all this information, including the 6 modules and all the information that we've been developing in Spanish and English. And remember, this is in rice and beans, things that farmers will understand. Will be together in a manual, in a guide called Manual de Sistemas Silvopastoriles, which is the first guide or manual that will be developed for silvopastoral systems in Puerto Rico, including, of course, Florida. And the good thing with this is if farmers cannot attain by themselves or work with the modules, we'll visit them. So we'll do whatever they want or they need just to complete the 15 contact hours.
Great, thank you, Edwin. I would also say that we have the actual curriculum online as well, right? So there's many different ways that we're trying to meet them, to make it as seamless a process as possible. Going to talk a little bit here about future phases and set it up for the following webinars. We will have time for Q&A as we mentioned, and then we'll have our contact information here at the end. But one of the things that I mentioned was that we kicked this off in October. In that period of time, kind of focused this approach on Puerto Rico. Within the last month or so, we've ramped up efforts in Florida, building on the model, lessons learned, make sure that it's been tested out. So we're picking up steam in many of the counties that Nola mentioned earlier during the data piece. As that happens, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, how we continue to build those partnerships in the state of Florida, working similar, very similar to the way we have here in Puerto Rico, and learning all we can from this approach. And then I'll actually turn it over here to Josh to talk a little bit about what's coming up next in the MMRV section of things.
Great, thanks, Frankie. So yeah, I'm going to keep it hopefully pretty brief because this is kind of a preview of the next webinar. But essentially, as I mentioned, Praedictus is sort of serving as the manager for the MMRV component of the project. And there's sort of a three-prong approach, at least to the measuring and monitoring side of things. So the first sort of primary backbone is that we're working with local universities to implement soil sampling and testing protocols. So actually, not only is it with local universities, but the outreach team, which Frankie and Jose and Nolo have spoken quite a bit about, who are so great on the ground, are going to also be helping us with taking, conventional soil samples from the participants, bringing them to local university lab for baseline analysis of soil carbon and other key soil characteristics. Coupled with that, the second part of this approach is the installation on a sample of participants of innovative real-time soil monitoring, specifically the Agrology arbiter devices, which Adam will talk about in much more detail in the next presentation, which is sort of an entirely separate, a separate but related dimension that allows for really great high temporal resolution real-time feedback of what's going on in the soils. So it's very nice and complementary to the more conventional soil sampling approach. And finally, the part that Praedictus is directly responsible for contributing to and delivering is the implementation of biophysical agroecosystem models for the relevant pasture crops in Puerto Rico and Florida. So this is really, modeling how the forage crop grows, extending the data from the soil measurements that I talked about in the prior 2 points, basically to sort of the total area being looked at, all the farms, and being able to extend and interpolate the results to draw some broader scientific and research conclusions to advance the project. So that's sort of the 3 components that I want to talk about. Of course, the other really important component is marketing the environmental assets that we're looking to help generate through this project. So I'll turn it over to Dominic from MillPont for that portion.
And thank you, Josh. Within the realm of market development, we think of this as kind of 3 tiers of market development. One is supply, demand, and methodology. So right now, with the project partners and the MRV, we're establishing, and the outreach, we're establishing that supply and quantifying to a high quality environmental outcomes that will then be tied to the products and commodities produced on farm. And with that, we'll be aggregating into a digital environment that allows for easy access to downstream beneficiaries, whether those are insetting, offsetting pathways and/or low carbon commodity pathways through carbon intensity. And really then phase 2 of this will move into that demand and merchandising aspect, where we will then be able to establish, with this credible supply of environmental assets and low carbon commodities, establish demand signals and market premiums connected to those supply chains and/or environmental assets if they're disaggregated from the commodity itself. And it's exciting within this project is that there is a lot of new producers to environmental markets that through this partnership, it's their first time interacting, and they're going to be going through a process that is creating really with the digital ecosystem and the outreach and protocols in place, very high quality and very rigorous environmental assets that will potentially command higher premiums in downstream markets.
Thank you, Dominic. We've had a few questions come in here. I just want to share out to the group. So first off, I'd love to learn a little more if there's just general tips that you could share around how to attract participants. I think one of the major achievements of the leadership of this project has been the number of participants attracted in a short amount of time. And we've heard anecdotally that it's not always this easy for folks to get people into projects. So if there's any, high-level tips you can offer to share, I think that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I think our success in the field, it's because we have extensive collaboration before this program with different components, different stakeholders. We have been working on the ground, assisting farmers with different issues like heirs property issues, other legal issues. We have been working in other grants, assisting underserved farmers in remote parts of the island where there's so much issues and needs. So we have been we have established a collaboration. We have established a trust. They trust us, and when we came with these initial orientations and we explained what we are doing to help climate change, it's been very rewarding because we have seen what this past collaboration, these past projects have done, establishing trust in the communities of Puerto Rico. So this and the extensive experience that has our outreach specialists on the ground, the previous work that they have done with the NRCS, and the collaboration that they have established with the agency have done the work that we are seeing right now. It's been very rewardful seeing these guys go to the mountains of Puerto Rico, to go to different parts of Puerto Rico, and they already know us for all the work that we have done on the field.
Thank you, Jose. Just to expand on that a little bit, you mentioned go-to a lot. What have you found as far as recruiting participants of the value of, online recruitment versus in-person events versus, going to the field versus trying to hold events maybe at a local university or that sort of thing?
Yeah, the thing is that in Puerto Rico, the average age of a farmer is 61 years old. So there's not so much technological savviness on the ground. So we have been adapting to different situations in remote parts of the island where there's not so much broadband internet, and we have taken our projector, our slides, everything, and the printed materials. We have done the work in person because there's need in different parts of the island. In other cases, we have done virtual orientation, webinars, and trainings, and the people that are more technological have connected, and there have been a 50-50, I can say, participation in both modules or varieties. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. So it sounds like, showing up is really, really important. And, given the average age in Puerto Rico doesn't differ that much from the average age of the farmer on the mainland United States. I think that's reaching people a variety of ways is a really important thing to consider. Now, the next thing I highlight to you. Yes.
Can I make, sorry, I just want to add an additional point to that question. Please. I think everything that Jose said is dead on. But I also think one of the things to highlight is that constant contact, right? It's not just going once, talking about the project, and then they're not seeing you again. Our team has gone as far to create a protocol on what happens on visit 1, 2, 3, 4, and maintaining that constant connection, right? So I think seeing our folks on the ground, having those folks come out, show up, having meaningful conversations, continuously bringing them information on how the project has advances, making them feel part of the whole, I think has been key, right? Continuously, be it every month, even less, announcing an event that we're having, announcing a space where we're going to bring folks together. So that constant contact is important so that folks see that something is moving. Sure, we're providing an incentive to producers. I think that incentive is important, and that was built into the project purposely, but that's not enough, right, to keep that individual connected, because that incentive is supposed to be yearly based off of participation and this kind of implementation of these practices. So in order for them to feel that they want to stay engaged and recommend us to their neighbors, fellow farmers, et cetera, it's that consistently checking in person. If it has to be virtual, fine. But I think that's been the success of the outreach folks.
You're mute, madam.
Thank you, Jose. Nolo, I saw you just pop into the chat with yet another answer that I think is interesting, if you wouldn't mind sharing that out, about the sense of pride of the community, because while I think, that's a really great point for this project, given that it's focused on Hispanic growers, that, there's grower culture in every part of the country, and that's an excellent thing to tap into. So if it's Colorado highland grazing or Iowa corn growing or anything like that, I think that, finding a way to make it about, hey, this community can come together and demonstrate how good they could be at this, I think that's excellent. And that's people from the community. So if you want to expand on that, Nolo, that'd be great. And if not, I just want to highlight that. Let me put that in the chat. And I think that's an important thing as well.
No, you describe it well. The only thing that I can add to that is that in every culture, is who you know, many times not what you know. And I think that having the courtesy, the respect of visiting people that are leaders in communities, that other folks that you want to connect with, believe, and trust is important. So I think that there is a sense of pride in our project about the fact that there is perhaps in some places a stigma about Hispanics being strong farm workers. Listen, we're strong in all kinds of levels, from science to conservationists, people that are leading science and agricultural projects. So yeah, there's a great sense of pride, and we benefit from that. And so yeah, that's another add-on.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'd also highlight, given that for the smaller tranche of projects under this program, that a lot of them focused on historically underserved and groups of growers, diverse groups of growers, there's a large opportunity to do that across the United States, and it's definitely something that should be tapped into. That if you want to, you know, it's an overall goal of the USDA program, and also just a brilliant outreach strategy. So thank you for highlighting that. That's awesome. I think that probably just about winds up our questions here. What I want to say next is, first of all, thank you to everybody for attending. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the project leadership team of Victus, mano-Y-ola, and Concentrico for leading this and organizing it, and most importantly, for recruiting such a large group of growers across the diverse terrain of Puerto Rico, growing all sorts of crops and all sorts of systems. It's super exciting, and there's just about every kind of environment you can imagine as part of this project, which makes the scientific outcomes even more exciting. So that's really great. I also want to add in that a recording of this deck will be sent to all participants, along with contact information for each of us, and a link to register for our next webinar on MMRV. So the next phase of the project after people are in, which is taking place on May 29th. And so we'll share that out. I think it's going to be, the details will get out to everyone via that, and we look forward to having you participate then. If any questions we didn't get a chance to answer today pop up, please feel free to carry them into the next webinar, or just reach out directly to the project participants, and we would all be happy to answer them. But thanks again for the slides here, and you know, thank you for putting together such a wonderfully complex project with all sorts of different participation from all over the place that really is honoring and contributing to the efforts that Hispanic growers have made in Puerto Rico and Florida. And again, it's a real honor to be part of this project, and really exciting to see how much amazing how much amazing progress this group has made in such a small amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thanks to you for making this possible.
Our pleasure. Thank you for our participants. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.